Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Hey everybody, welcome. We're glad to have everybody with us. We've got a lot of great questions to cover with you. We'll also update you on some interesting bar exam news around the country. The big announcement I wanted to make is to let you know that we've been working on this series of video training based on the report that was done for the New York bar examiners. It's a 2-year study and it was done by the Access Lex Institute. And we titled it 6 Keys to the Pass List. It's actually looking at what items in this statistical and group study led people to go from failing the exam to passing the exam. It's one of the very few studies that looked at this particular phenomenon, and we've broken it into a series of videos. I just finished recording and posting a few minutes ago video number 5 in the series, which has a couple of different titles. Its generic title is Legal Education, but it's really about avoiding unnecessary waste. And I know that all of you here have been through law school, and you might be saying, well, why do I want to watch that? And the reason is that there are some things about what you learned in law school that you want to take with you and some things that you can safely dump. And we talk about the difference in process, and there's some interesting findings that came out of the study. So make sure that you check that out. We've had lots of people go through the previous 4 videos and the introduction. I've gotten lots of terrific feedback, so thank you for that. I hope that you're finding it useful. It's been really exciting for me to do. Got one more video left to record, and it's on the external factors. It's a huge one, right? Like debt and family and health and lots of other factors that came up. So stick around for that. We'll get that hopefully out by the weekend. Make sure you check that out, 6 Keys to the Pass List. All right, let's see if we can bring Megan in. Hey, how are you?
Hi, doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So we were talking before we went live. How many days do we have to the bar exam right now?
I think it was 41. I might be off a little bit, but yes, somewhere in that neighborhood. Pretty crazy to think about. It feels like, I'm sure to many of our students, I know it feels like it's tomorrow. But the good news is it's not. 41 days is actually, it's a good chunk of time.
It's a really long chunk of time, and it seems interminably long to me. But that's probably, as the older I get, the longer it takes. All right. Let's start by just taking a brief look around the bar exam world. And I know you've got some news to share with us.
Yeah. I think what's really, at first, I just want to note, it's really interesting that in so many ways, the bar exam world, as you said, has really slowed down significantly. And it's really nice. It feels really nice that things feel just so much more settled. I think I was looking in the NCBE updates their page of what's happening with the next exam and who's going online and who's doing this and that. And they haven't even had to update it at all since May. And it just feels like everyone can breathe a sigh of relief of things are settled. And then we know what's going to happen with at least with the UBE states moving forward after this July exam, that they will go back to the regular test as the way it was. And yeah, just a lot less uncertainty, which I think is really helpful for people, certainly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So the big news this week, though, in this world is that the New York Bar Association, which I want to be really clear, is not the New York Board of Law Examiners. So the Bar Association in New York, they commissioned not a study, but they had like a task force to tasked with figuring out if the bar exam, what needed to be improved, changed. We can all acknowledge there are some major flaws with the exam. And so they just came out with their recommendations. And the big overarching recommendation of it was that they put out a call to disassociate from the UBE. Now, before anyone panics, I want to be really clear. This is a recommendation by the Bar Association. This is not the New York Board of Law Examiners saying that they are no longer doing the UBE. This is a recommendation by another group. And even if the recommendation was taken into account and was accepted, it would be Jackson when?
In 4 or 5 years. Just about the time that the new bar exam from the national conference is supposed to be unveiled. And that's really the interesting part of the story. So I want to just emphasize everything that Megan just said. If you're presently a New York bar taker, nothing changes, not a bit. You're taking the UBE, you're going to be taking the UBE that's the world that you're going to face. But in 4 or 5 years, when the bar exam as we know it goes away, and it will, and Megan and I have done some videos about this, and you're welcome to check those out. When that new bar exam comes, the question that we've been asking for, the better part of a year now, is what will happen to big jurisdictions? Will they track the national conference and go to this non-multi-state bar exam, non-performance test, non-essay? It will not look anything like the bar exam does today. What will the big jurisdictions do? And we've been focusing a lot, you and I, on California and Florida, in part because that's where our home bases are, but also because those are two states that typically go their own way, and they're not part of the UBE world. Now, the UBE, the Uniform Bar Exam's got over 30 jurisdictions in it, but the 98-pound gorilla is New York. That's the biggest by far of the UBE jurisdictions. And it was a bit of a shock to hear the Bar Association say, yeah, we're not in love with the UBE, and in 4 or 5 years, maybe we should do something of our own. That could be the beginning. That could be the shot heard round the bar exam world, that maybe this new bar exam is not going to be the thing that everybody gets in line and follows. Now, that's a 5-year story. It's not a story today, but we're just giving you a little heads up because it's our lives and it's our world, and so we geek out on this stuff. If you're taking the bar exam, if you're here watching and listening today, yeah, it's not going to have an impact on you. But it's an interesting thing to see. And as you and I were talking, Megan, the other part of this is it's the wrong solution to the problem. In other words, what the Bar Association really was saying was, we are so special here in New York that we don't think a generalized test is good enough for us, because you got to be really good at New York law. Now, for many years, the New York bar exam was highly specialized. There was CPLR for procedure, and there was all sorts of things that were highly New Yorkish, which of course the Florida bar just enjoyed because they tested the anti-New York rules. But nonetheless, like many states, the New York bar feels like they should be protective and they should make the test more state specific. So the New York law exam, which is currently given, which I describe as a driver's license test, it's an open book at-home test. I mean, look this up and tell us the answer. It doesn't really satisfy what the Bar Association wants. Now, it's not what the bar examiners want, but what the Bar Association wants. So their desire to break away from the traditional bar exam may have more to do with their sense of being protective and wanting specialized New York law. Do you read it that way?
Yeah, definitely. They said explicitly, they said things like, and this is a quote, while we support the idea of performance tests, we're concerned that if students perceive that when they take the bar examination, they'll be provided with a library file of New York materials, they will not study the New York material during law school, which to me seems very odd. If they are taking a class where they need to learn New York law, then they will learn the New York law for that class. Certainly, if they're not in a New York State law school, they will not learn New York law. But then if they transition to practice in New York, they will learn it on the job. So it is a very interesting, weird things like that. But I think that does go, Jackson, to what you were just saying about the timing of it, that it does seem to me to be at least partially in response to the proposed changes to the bar exam, because this sort of, we do like the idea of performance tests, we don't want you to give them the material. And that is the shift that's going to be happening with the bar, is going to be less focus, which we think is a great idea, less focus on cram all this information in your head and learn all these random laws that you will never have to pull up without any reference to in practice, and instead more of a holistic and a bit more accurate to real life approach. And so it sounds like the New York Law Exam or the New York Bar Association is saying, we're not so sure about that. We think you should have to, which sometimes can be gatekeeping of, I had to learn all this idiosyncratic New York law, so you should have to learn it too.
Yeah. And it's ironic because it's the New York bar examiner study that we've done our new video training series, the 6 keys to the pass list. And the one I just recorded is about how useless law school is. And the findings say taking courses in specific law didn't make any difference on bar passage, and taking a law school bar prep course Zero impact, 0% change in results. So it's, hey, bar examiners, you guys want to talk to your association and maybe you guys can get your story straight? So I don't know. New York makes me crazy. But really, this is just weird stuff, and we'll follow it. We'll see what happens. But it'll be interesting to me to see what California, Florida, Georgia, a couple of other states do, if they follow this lead or not. Interesting stuff. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But yes, it's a good note of if you see or hear anything about this over the next, while you're studying for this exam or the February exam, it can go in one ear and out the other, and you can know you don't have to worry about it. It will not apply to you.
Absolutely.
All right. So we had a few general questions that I wanted to pose to you first, Jackson, and then we'll get into some administrative questions. The first is, do bar graders see our MBE scores before they grade our essays?
No. As far as I know, in every jurisdiction, grading is blind. However, having said that, what happens is something a little more subtle than just a straight, I see that this applicant has X score on the MBE. Nobody sees that. But the multi-state is graded within typically 2 weeks after the test, and every jurisdiction has that report. So long before the essays are being graded in every jurisdiction, the bar examiners have a rank order of every applicant for that state and how they did. And the bar examiners are smart enough to know what the data points will tell them, which is a score of X on the multi-state is equivalent to somebody passing typically or not passing, and how close they are to that range. So let's say you needed 130 scaled MBE and you got 100. We know you're not going to pass the bar. The examiners know it, you know it, we know it, everybody knows it, but they still have to read your essays. So now they take all the essays of the people that scored 100, let's say, and they give them to, for question one, to grader A, who says, oh, my life, why did you give me all these essays? And they say, well, you don't have to spend very long on them. Wink, wink, nod. Because while we're not telling you that these applicants got a specific score, you can infer from the number of essays we're asking you to grade and the time we want you to spend on them that they're not terribly important. But let's say we've got some people who are in the 125 to 135 range on the multi-state. Now their essay number ones are going to grader B, who's got a much smaller stack to look at. And that grader says, why do I have a smaller stack? And they say, well, we want you to take a closer look. You get the point. There is a funneling process that goes on. I respect a state like Georgia, which just says, if you don't hit a certain number on the MBE, we're not going to read your essays. I think that's honest. California doesn't do it. So instead, you get a default score of 50 or 55, which may or may not reflect your actual writing, but simply a reflection of the fact that your multi-state score wasn't close enough to passing. So that's how it's handled. I know that's frustrating, but that's the reality. So what it really means is you got to get really pretty close to passing in your jurisdiction on the multi-state for a good, solid reading of your written work.
Great. All right. So let's talk about some questions. Sure. Regarding paraliminals, are there any videos or samples of what it actually looks like or how it works?
Paraliminals are all auditory, so there's nothing about what it looks like. It's all sound. And if you go to the paraliminals order page, we've got some videos there that explain the process for you. There is a sample paraliminal in the PhotoReading course called Memory Supercharger, so you can certainly do that, and you can get a feeling for paraliminals that way. Beyond that, we don't make any samples available because they come from Learning Strategies, so it's not our product to be able to distribute that way. So that's the answer there.
Does everyone get the same order of MEE questions for the UBE? Jackson's video on my last exam goes over them, but it's not the same order when I go to the website to view the last exam. So I'm not sure the ones he told me I did good and bad on are actually those essays.
Yeah, sorry about that. So what happens is that we get the subjects, but we aren't given the order of the subjects officially until the NCBE releases them. You all want to have videos from me if you didn't pass, and so we give you our best assessment of the order in which the questions were given. They were given in the same order in every UBE jurisdiction. But this year, this February, the order that we had was incorrect for the actual order. So the answer to that is you can go back through and figure out and so on. They are in that order in your UBE online book. We published them in the order in which they were given in the exam, and you can do that translation. So I apologize for that. The question was, do I wait and months, literally, in some cases for people until we got that official release? The part of the problem is the national conference won't let us release those subjects until after Georgia releases their results. And so that's why it took us, was it until May something to be able to get that information? So long way when you're considering that some people got their exam results in March. There you go.
All right. Is it possible to score 50% or less on the MBE and score higher on the MEE and MPT and still pass the exam? Or is it necessary to score 60% on everything to pass the exam?
Yeah. Every state that uses the UBE uses an equi percentile method, which means that all of your points count equally. So if you're having a higher scaled score in the multi-state, it'll offset a lower written score and vice versa. There's no minimum threshold in the UBE states. Now, there's no minimum threshold in California. You just need the cumulative total. And in Florida, of course, in Florida, there is a minimum threshold to pass one section or the other. However, you can fail one section and pass the other by enough to give you a compensatory pass. What does all that mean? Nothing, really. You should not be asking yourselves that question today. What you should be doing is following the syllabus, because the syllabus has already calculated all that in. We've done the analysis of how much time to spend in order to get the right preparation. Where people typically make a mistake, and this came up in the New York study, and we talked about it in one of the earlier training videos, is that they overcompensate. They try to do more on multi-state because they failed the first time. And what the study found is that the people that overcompensated actually did worse than the people that just did it the same number of questions that they had done before. And so there's this pendulum swinging, that process that gets in. And the bar examiners in the study called it a self-study cocktail. And they said, it does not work. It's actually detrimental. Don't do that. Follow your bar review's advice about how much to study. So I think that's wisdom. And again, if you haven't looked at these videos in the 6 keys to the pass list, they're 20-minute videos each. They're really valuable, I think, in terms of giving you some insights as to what worked and didn't work. So that was one of the insights.
Yeah, I think that overall trying to game the system just doesn't work. Like when students individually just decide, I heard on YouTube, or my friend told me that actually all I have to do is if I can get every MBE question, then I can blow off all the essays and it doesn't matter, or whatever. It just leads to heartbreak. And so really there's not a shortcut. Like, I know that's hard and it feels, isn't there some way that I can actually just not study these subjects that I don't like? Because I think that's sometimes what it comes down to is I'll never understand property. So I don't want to study property. So I could just do these other things and then I could bomb the property essay and still pass the test. And that's just a real risky strategy that I don't think we've ever seen pay off for anyone.
And this statistical study in New York provides the empirical data. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's not nice. I'm not sure it's the right word. It is reassuring and satisfying to know that they found what we have learned anecdotally, experientially over 30 years, but no surprises.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
This is where we get to at about this stage in the process when people start looking for the nits to pick.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like I say this a lot, but don't leave your common sense at the door when you come to study for the bar and when you go to take the test. It just applies in so many circumstances. If we tell you this is what we want you to do, then that's what we're asking you to do. Now, you can take our advice, you cannot take our advice, but don't try to figure out a way that you can convince us that actually we didn't tell you to do that. You know what we're asking you to do, and you don't have to do it. You're a grown-up. You can do whatever you want, but don't turn it around like we're actually telling you something. hiding something secret from you.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Sarah said to me the other day, she said, you realize you're coming up actually on 65 plus bar exams personally.
Wow.
65 times around the mulberry bush. So there isn't a lot I haven't seen, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I pretty much know what I want to do at this point. I pretty well worked it out. So
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
All right. Do you have some kind of summary or short outline that I can use? I just finished my first review, but if I go back for the second round, I may not have time. I'd like to review something short on each subject instead.
This is interesting because it came from somebody I think that's a photo reader. So I would start by saying photo read. That's what you should be doing. Is
That's the shortest.
That's the shortest, right? The second thing is that you can look at BarMaps. And the BarMaps product gives you detailed time-stamped videos that you can look at sections of the videos, and it gives you the mind maps, and there's the fast finish audios. So all of that is designed to compress your study there. So that's the second tool, would be BarMaps. The third tool would be the Multistate nutshell videos. This is a set of seven 25-minute videos that are designed to summarize the entire subject of the multistate in an audio and video format. So those things exist. I think what's often happening here is that people are trying to, again, to put us in a Barbary box. And do you have the Gilberts, or do you have the Emmanuel's study, or whatever crazy thing they're using these days? We do our own thing. We have our own products that are unique and proprietary to us. And I think that between photo reading, BarMaps, multi-state nutshell videos, you got all the tools you need to be able to get through it. That would be my recommendation. Yeah,
definitely. There are definitely lots of options to figure out what works for you and for how much time you have left in your schedule. I will say too, man, I'm impressed. It's like they just finished their first review. That's awesome. We are still in mid-June. So I think you do have time to go back and do some really in-depth review, which is a great spot to be in. So I just want to push back a little on that I know it feels, and this is what we said at the top, it feels to a lot of students right now like the exam is so close, but really, man, like over 40 days left of studying, like you've got time to do what you want to do. You will get done with what you feel like. Now you're going to want to prioritize. You're going to want to make sure you hit those subjects that are really difficult for you and hit those harder than some of the ones that you feel pretty confident in. But you're sitting pretty. If you're reviewing right now, you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. Okay.
All right. So now we've got some questions about photo reading, several actually. So let's go through those. Okay. All right. Do students do better if they take the photo reading class?
Yes. They do. The photo reading, I would say that I brought a lot of innovation to bar study over the years. I think that's probably what I'm most known for. But photo reading is probably the thing among all of those that has been the biggest game changer. And when I first started teaching photo reading, it was to just a few people who, frankly, I was desperate to find something that would change the world for them. And when it worked and worked so well, then we started expanding. And then after a while, I didn't have to even really talk much about it because our existing students talked it up and were so excited about it, and it goes on. Today, I would say we're probably somewhere between 60 and maybe 75% of our students use photo reading without much of a push from us to do it. It's people wanting it. And when I talk to successful students, the people that pass the exam, the vast majority of those people are photo readers and successfully using photo reading. And so if you don't believe me, not that you wouldn't, but if you don't, you can watch some of these videos that we've done with people. We just did one that's been very popular with a guy named Prince. Maybe it's because his first name is Prince. This video just blew up on YouTube. I could not believe it. And he used photo reading after 22 years after he graduated from law school. And he's like, yeah, I don't exactly know how it worked or why it worked, but it worked. And so there you go. So I think the short answer is yes, it works and you should do it. The other question that comes up at this stage is, do I still have enough time to photo read for the bar exam? And the answer is yes. I have seen people successfully add photo reading up to about 3 weeks before the exam, so about 21 days before the exam. It only takes an hour a day while you're studying for the bar for 8 days to learn the entire photo reading system. So you certainly have enough time to do that right now. I would encourage you to do that if you haven't.
Great. How long are the photo reading classes, and do you get direct tutoring on this method? Who are we able to reach if we have questions?
There's a series of 8 one-hour lessons that are taught by Paul Sheely from Learning Strategies, along with a series of webinars and videos that I include that I've done over the years. And that's the curriculum. You do your photo reading study while you're studying for the bar. So you do an hour of photo reading, and then you do whatever your bar study hours are for the day for the first 7 or 8 days to get through it. If you purchase photo reading from us, you get one conference with me, which is really designed to just help you figure it out after you've gone through the lessons. It doesn't take very long. It's pretty straightforward. Beyond that, we don't offer any kind of coaching on photo reading specifically. If you're in the coaching course, we'll certainly talk to you about it. You can ask questions in the Facebook group or even in group coaching calls. I think actually all of our group coaches right now are former photo readers, so they're a great resource there as well.
For photo reading, will the printed books be included with the course, or should I print the photo reading material from the website?
Yeah, you don't need to print out the photo reading material. I know that when photo reading was first produced by Learning Strategies, it was a time when there wasn't digital. And so they talk about the book, but it's a PDF. It's in your materials. You can read it online. I do all of my photo reading online. I don't do hard copy for the most part, and you don't need hard copy. You could print it out, but that's a real waste of your time. Just photo read in digital form, and you'll be just fine. You don't need a printed book from Learning Strategies to do that.
Great. Can you use photo reading to review flashcards?
Yeah, this one is just, I love this. This was a YouTube question, so it's probably not one of our students. Since we don't use flashcards, it struck me as missing the point of photo reading, which is you could photo read the whole outline in the time that photo reading your flashcards. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, you can photo read anything. You can photo read the funnies. You can photo read anything that you want to photo read, but the real use of it is that you could read the source material, and that's the beauty, I think. In fact, that came up. We may have another photo reading question, I think, that gets to that, so we'll see if we get there.
Okay. Is there a webinar for how to photo read for the MBE or essay parts?
Yes, there are 2 separate webinars, just like we've got them for mind maps. We've got a photo reading for the MBE, and we have photo reading for essays, and we have photo reading for the performance test. You can go to our website. You'll see them. You can go to our photo reading order page, and I think you'll see the webinars there as well. They're, again, on-demand, unlimited viewing webinars, and I think they're really helpful if you want a deeper dive on how to use photo reading. Now, we'll show you the basics for sure, but we know there are some people that just want more experience and training. Some of these were done, I think they came from our boot camps, weren't they? Where we recorded them out of boot camps. The live training that we did pre-pandemic. So There you go.
All right. Last photo reading question. How long should it take to photo read both of the MBE subjects?
Yeah, that was the one. Okay, so when I was talking about the source, photo reading the source material, I have recommended to many of you that what you do right now is that you photo read your Multistate books 1 and 2 3 nights a week, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, let's say, and that you photo read your state outline books Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And I had a student in a call today who said, how long should that take? And said it was taking them an hour a night to do the Multistate books. I said, that's way too long. You should be able to photo read the 2 volumes of Multistate books in about 30 minutes or less. Your brain can absorb as fast as you can go. There's no reason to go slowly here. When you're photo reading, crank it, put your foot down, crank it up. I saw this movie Ford versus Ferrari the other day. I've been told about it. It's so cool watching these guys drive in the 1960s, putting their foot on the accelerator. Ooh. And that's like photo reading to me. Put your foot on the accelerator, just speed it up. Your brain can handle it. You don't have to go slowly. So my view is 30 minutes to read the 2 Multistate volumes total, and probably about 20 minutes to read most of the state volumes, maybe a little bit longer in California, a couple volumes there, a couple volumes in Florida. But the UBE, for sure, 20 minutes. And that's an easy one. So go fast. Okay, you're reading them multiple times. There's no reason to go slow. Go fast.
Yeah. All right. And our last question for today. We're almost 40 days out from the exam. What should I do if I'm not happy with where I am in my studies? Not far enough along, not writing good essays, getting good MBE scores.
Yeah. This is a pretty common question, don't you think, in terms of people being outcome-based instead of process-based. And it's too early to switch to the outcome methodology. That is, right now, you don't have to take the bar exam today. And so the expectation that you should be writing passing work or doing passing level MBE is unrealistic. For most people, it does not happen at 40 days out from the exam. In fact, it probably won't happen for a lot of people 20 days out from the exam or even 10 days out. That's why you got till the end, okay? And you use till the end. The problem that happens for so many people, and the reason that there's so much emotional upheaval right now, is that the exam feels like it's today. It just feels imminent. It's the solar eclipse of your world. It blocks out all the sun, and it's all you can see is the bar exam. And so you think the bar exam is right here. And I think, Megan, you can say, now you're going on about your 20th exam, right? Isn't that clear?
Oh, yeah, that's crazy to think about.
That is crazy. But for you, 40 days seems what? Short or long?
Yeah, it seems long. Seems like, woof, we have a really long time before we get there.
Exactly. And that's reality, is that it's long. If we asked you to go back in time 40 days as a bar student right now, you couldn't remember what you did 40 days ago. It would seem like it was so far ago. And yet 40 days from now seems like it's right now, doesn't it? There's a weird thing about the way our brains process time. So what happens is that we have this emotional disconnect between the quality of the work we're doing, that we know we're doing today, and our misguided, non-objective belief that the exam is today. And truthfully, that's going to cause you anxiety because you're not ready to pass the bar exam today, nor should you be, but you feel like you should. So what starts to happen, the tipping point is at about 40 days. From 40 days on, what happens is you will gain competence every day as you're studying, and yet the exam will not seem closer to you. I promise you that tomorrow morning, the exam will not seem closer to you than it does today, even though objectively it's 24 hours nearer. And what happens is that as your competence climbs and as the exam seems to be steady on the horizon to you, you get closer and closer to where you're actually able to be competent on the exam, and that reduces your stress. So the cognitive dissonance that occurs at this stage is the greatest, and that's why people get irritated and agitated, and they pick fights with partners and spouses and baristas, and they're all of the things that happen. And it was certainly made even worse last year with COVID. And I was amazed at how calm people actually were able to stay under those circumstances. And yet I'm finding coming out of that right now, that actually right now people are more agitated than they were a year ago when I thought they had more reason to be agitated. I wonder if it's partly that we've had all this pent up frustration and tension, and so it just feels really icky. Does that make sense right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's in some ways, I think the gravity of the bar was put in maybe a proper perspective easier last year, right? That it feels life and death, but it really looked like it was easy to see that it wasn't actually life and death last year. And this year, certainly there's a bit more of that switch back to the bar feeling like just the most important thing in people's lives. Yeah, so I just encourage anybody who's feeling that way, like the bar is just like the only thing that matters, just so important, just to try to take a step back, maybe go outside, do something that you love with people who you love, and reorient your perspective a little bit. It's not a criticism. We all get that way with things where they just start to loom so big and they feel so overwhelming and they're just going to crush everything else. So definitely I would say, if that's you and you're feeling yourself thinking about the bar just constantly and stressed about it and fixating on little things or problems or annoyances, maybe try and take a step away from it just for a few hours and try and get your mindset back in a positive way of viewing this not as the be all end all.
The other tool that we've got that we haven't talked about today is the Abundance for Bar Study MasterClass, which is all about how you get your head on straight and make most use of your processing capability. It is a very useful webinar. It's 90 minutes. And it's something I would really encourage you to look at. If you're feeling at all frustrated or discouraged, if you feel like you're not going to get there and you're not going to be ready, this masterclass probably would do a great deal to help you evaluate that in a more honest way. And I think ultimately that's what all this comes down to, is that people are making subjective decisions about how they're doing when they really don't have the data to do that. And the objective reality is you're not taking the bar exam right now. So relax, take it easy. You're still a long way away. And I know that's not always what you want to hear, but that is the reality. If we told you Christmas was 41 days away, you'd be like, oh my God, it's forever. As kids, it was forever. As we get older, it gets faster and faster. So don't let that weird warping of time cause you to lose your emotional equilibrium. I think that's where I would end up.
Definitely. All right. Well, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Megan. We will be back again next week. We'll update you. We'll have more student questions, and we will look forward to being just a little bit closer to the exam. And hopefully some of that emotional tension will be out of the room just a bit. With that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Have a great study week, everyone. And we will talk to you again next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.